It's been a fascinating and terrifying week as we unfold the Mkhwanazi saga. Bheki Cele rounded off his testimony in Parliament, dealing with everything from Senzo Mchunu to the AKA murder. And we had Witness C taking us right inside the movie that was the arrest of Matlala. Why does this all matter? Stick around to find out. Spread the fire. Welcome back to SMWX. I'm Mpofu-Walsh, and this is the Mpofu-Walsh experience. My, fellow South Africans, it has been quite the week. And these Friday sessions where we round up the week are turning into quite the event between the two of us, because we are able to reflect on all that has happened. And I'm so glad that you've all been showing the channel such love and support. I really appreciate the way you've lifted this platform to a position of influence in the country. This week, I would say, was probably the most important week in this unfolding Mkhwanazi allegations saga, for the following reason. We haven't had a week where we had both a parliamentary and a commission live stream going off at the same time. And so we were able to notice both the parliamentary live stream and the parliamentary ad hoc committee at the same time. And so because we had these two parallel streams going off at the same time, we learned a deep amount about both the political intrigue in Parliament, but then also we learned a lot about the actual criminal syndicate questions in the commission. And I want to try and tie a lot of all of that together. That's what we've been doing over the last week. So please make sure that you do watch all these weeks' episodes. But today, let's focus on what happened in Parliament. So what I want to do is I want to focus on Bheki Cele and his testimony. Also, an interesting subplot within his testimony, which has to do with the way he raised the AKA murder trial and also the death of Anele Tembe. So there was that, which I feel we can't ignore either. Then what I also want to look at is Witness C and the explosive testimony again that came out of the Madlanga Commission today. And then we'll take a look at what we can expect going forward. So let's begin with Bheki Cele's testimony. And to wrap up and round up, look, we've invited Bheki Cele on this channel. He graciously agreed to come here. It's an interesting interview. You should watch it. And there's no doubt that Bheki Cele is a smooth political operator. He's engaging, he's entertaining, and on security matters, he's also knowledgeable. So as a showpiece, this was box office, right? Bheki Cele brought box office to this Mkhwanazi saga. But beyond the intrigue and the entertainment, I also think there are a series of questions, even around Bheki Cele, that haven't been fully resolved. You see, Bheki Cele is ultimately also an ANC politician who's been around for a long time and himself has been deeply either to praise or to blame for the situation of the criminal justice system in South Africa. And so while I thought he did himself a service in the way he presented, I still think there are some deep questions to ask and for Bheki Cele to answer in terms of his testimony. Now go back and check yesterday's video, because I went into a deep dive in terms of his witness statement where I found a few discrepancies, but I want to pick up on a few other things that emerged today. Firstly, Bheki Cele said that there's a picture between President Ramaphosa and Matlala, which he says is public. I'm not aware of this picture. Are you? Have you seen it? Because I searched for it today and I can't see a public picture of President Ramaphosa and Matlala. Take a look at this testimony where we get this revelation that apparently not only have they met, but there's a picture between the two of them.
And don't you think in the context like that, you are contributing indirectly in diminishing the standing of the African National Congress by being associated with such characters? Thanks, Chair. That was my last question.
Chairperson, when I met Madlanga, he was not arrested. I did not even know that he's a wanted for the things that are there. By the way, many of the leaders of Madlanga, leaders of the movement, have been seen with Madlanga. I hope you have seen his photo with the president. I hope you have. Yeah, it's public. Is there.
What? There's a photo with the president and Kat Madlanga. Definitely not public as far as I'm aware. Where was this photo taken? What were the circumstances? So now we hear that the president not only walked past Morgan Maumela's house, had 2 conversations with him, but also has a picture with Kat Madlanga. Was this a way for the ANC to tell us this before this comes to light? Or did Cele really know that really think this was a public image? Is it a public image and I'm wrong? Have you seen it? This is big, people. This is big. And it's not a good look for the president to keep popping up in pictures with these people who are facing these hugely incriminating charges. But it's not just about the president, although I like to start these sessions from the top of the government down, because we've also heard some really disturbing allegations about the judiciary and Chief Justice Mandisa Maya and the judiciary releasing a statement yesterday saying if there is any complaint against a judge, there are avenues for those complaints to be tabled. They're not aware of any of the people. I believe there was a Chief Magistrate Mahlangu. There's also a Deputy Judge President Aubrey Letwaba. They're not aware of any formal complaints that have been tabled with the relevant judicial body, but they're calling for that. And Deputy Judge President Letwaba has decided not to go on special leave. However, it's obvious that the judiciary is taking these allegations very seriously. So I do think on this we have moved from a point at which people have kind of suggested that there's absolutely no chance that this could be true. Well, it might be true about one magistrate, but definitely not any judges, to at least the prospect, given the evidence that has come out, and by no means is it evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, but at least the prospect that there is further explaining to be done. And that is extremely disturbing because it lends credence to Mkhwanazi's initial averment that across the criminal justice system, there are at least pockets of potential capture from the police all the way to prosecutorial system, all the way to the judicial system, and then finally the system of incarceration. And all of those have these hallmarks of criminal syndicate infiltration. But of course, much more to be seen. And of course, as well, both of these judicial officers, both the magistrate and the judge, have asked for an opportunity to state their side of the case. And it's only fair that we listen to their perspectives and their side, and that they be given a full opportunity to ventilate their perspectives. There's also a really interesting legal element developing here, because we have criminal investigations, we have criminal cases going on. But in parallel to this, we also have a commission, and there's civil litigation going on. There's a commission, and then there's this parliamentary inquiry, and they are all feeding into each other. And I'm not sure the lawyers among us have fully worked out the ramifications of all of these things happening at once and the influence on one on the other. So I would say, all in all, in terms of Cele's testimony at the commission, entertaining, interesting, but various questions. There was also a really interesting thing that I didn't quite notice yesterday, but I've given further thought to today, in terms of the way that Cele spoke about a completely different issue, but one that has obviously occupied the minds of South Africans, and that was the question of AKA and his partner. Sadly, both of them are no longer with us in a tragic situation for our country. But I want to take a look at this because in many ways, I think I'm left with more questions than answers over this particular part, and a part that probably needs some further thinking. Let's take a look at what Bheki Cele said in Parliament and then come back to review it.
I'm sure you will hear one day that there is an inquest. There is an inquest in the death of Moses Tembe's daughter. Honorable member, police did the investigation and they believed that that daughter was murdered. They believed. They went time and again to the prosecutor for the things to be enrolled. They would say, go back, dot the I's and cross the T's. Until they said, if you can't do it, give us a certificate. I went to the president personally. I said, Mr. President, your Minister of Police is going to do something funny. Is going to support the private prosecution. And the prosecutor refused.
So before I even address the situation, just a few caveats and disclaimers, because number one, as you may know, during high school, I shared a friendship with Kekana, AKA Forbes, and we were in a rap group together, video evidence of which is still on the internet. And I know members of his family who I hold in very high regard. I didn't speak to Kekana for about 10 years before his tragic murder, but that needs to be said. In addition, I also have deep respect for the Tembe family, and although I don't know them as well, I know that my family also knows their family too. And I know that there are two families, before we even get into this, that are deeply grieving and deeply sad. So I want to be very sensitive about this. And that's also why I think that the way this was raised in Parliament was quite inappropriate, just given how sensitive all of this is for these families. But having said that, because this is an issue of public interest, I also do just want to say that no matter which side of this question you come from, there are some really serious questions that flow from what Bheki Cele just said in Parliament. I mean, wow. And it's interesting that we're only hearing about this now when this is such a matter of public interest. I guess the first would be, let's go through what he said. He said there was this inquest and the police believed that they had a solid case against AKA Kekana Forbes. But the NPA refused to prosecute. And then Cele went to the president and said, I support a private prosecution. Now, on the one hand, we've got this question of political interference in the legal system, in the criminal justice system. And on the other hand, we have Cele saying, well, over this case, I didn't leave it to the institutions that were supposed to look into this. I went to the president and I pushed for a private prosecution, which I find interesting. And I guess it also raises the question, I'm afraid to say, it seems like we always say this, does the president know about this? What's the president's version on this? This now becomes a legitimate question to ask the president in the commission, in the committee when he goes, because it's now been led as evidence there. So I'm interested in this decision at the highest, or this conversation at the highest peak of government. Again, not even necessarily just about this particular issue, but it feels like there are all these things that people know about our country that we, the citizens, just don't get to know. And this commission is starting to unravel all of these things that have been in secret for so long. It also raises questions before the NPA. Let's assume Cele is correct. Then why did the NPA decline to prosecute? And now it puts pressure on them to come out and explain this, right? Because now a former police commissioner and a police minister says they seem to have acted in bad faith. And if that is really true, that's terrible. So where is the NPA in all of this now, given what Cele has said? He's opened a serious can of worms here on a whole other issue of just great public interest. So I guess we do need the NPA on record on this, or some kind of reaction from them, because now we've got someone who at least used to represent the police who says they acted inappropriately as the NPA. And I guess there is a question as well about, why now and why on this platform? In some ways, there's a deeper question here about how it feels like there's so much that's unresolved in South Africa. And this Mkhwanazi thing is almost now becoming about all of it. It's all just coming out. And in some ways that's good, but in some ways that's also worrying, because we really need to question what goes on this platform and what doesn't as well. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, but I did think that was a particularly interesting moment, which has thrown up a whole series of questions, given the answers that we got as well. And I do think since Cele put that perspective across, it's also important to put the questions that come from that perspective so that the public has at least all of those versions. But let's move on from there, because this wasn't everything that was happening. We also had Witness C's testimony. And fam, I want to take you back inside the movie that is the saga. This week we've been talking about the movie, the series, and I said episode 1, season 1. Hey, the series probably has 10 seasons at least. But episode 1, season 1 is the police roll up on Katiso Molefe's Sandhurst mansion in order to effect a really pivotal arrest. A whistleblower has been shot 23 times in Vereeniging, and a lot of the evidence traces back to the Sandhurst mansion. But guess what? Now we cut to scene 2, because on the same day, the fateful 6th of December, 2024, another alleged criminal kingpin is also meeting the police. At his mansion, this is Kat Matlala's mansion, a separate team is there to inquire as to the whereabouts of a kidnapped person, Mr. Jerry Bushokha. And they go into Kat Matlala's house, an opulent mansion, according to Witness C. By the way, who is Witness C? He's the person who is leading this arrest. So we heard from Witness A, who led the search and seizure operation in Katiso Molefe's house. Now we're hearing from the person who was leading the Kat Matlala on the same day. So in these two opulent mansions, these two operations are going on. And Witness C says he joined Witness A and B, who were under siege. They had faced bribery. They had faced threats to their lives, and yet they carried on with this case, investigating this Transnet whistleblower's murder. Witness C kind of rode in to give them backup from the political killings task team, to say, you're not alone, I'm here, and I'm here to assist and help with this. And so Witness C came on board and took the Kat Matlala leg of this investigation. He had been given a docket which suggested that Matlala may have been involved, at least he alleged, in 2 different kidnappings, one of a mother and son and one of business person Jerry Bushokha. And he was actually going to the house because he had information that he thought this kidnapped person, the businessman, might be there. Ultimately, they didn't find Jerry Bushokha, but they found Kat Matlala and his wife there and a number of his employees. They went up to the bedroom where Matlala apparently had a pistol on a pedestal. That should definitely be the name of a rap album. And and questioned Madlanga and apparently recorded the conversation they had with him. And boy, was that conversation fundamental to South Africa and its possible future. Because Madlanga there said, number one, he had big connections within the police. He said that people like, he alleged people like the Deputy National Commissioner, Shadrack Sibia, the other key leader within criminal investigations, a certain Mr. Bushiri, and also someone he alleged from crime intelligence, a Mr. Khan, he had links with. He also said that he had a tender with the South African Police Service. Remember, the police are there to, in this operation at his house, and he's saying to them, hey, you don't know who I am, basically. He apparently showed them private numbers of some of these key people, and he also drew a link between himself and Senzo Mkhunu, who apparently in this interview he said he was meeting later that day. So this was a crucial moment at which the people investigating crimes started learning that this was deeper than just crime. This was a network of people who had serious sway within both the police, the criminal justice system, and politics. Now, a number of articles were then seized from Madlanga's house that day, including his cell phone. Now, that cell phone obviously would have had crucial evidence and information that could help draw links. For example, was Madlanga communicating with Mkhunu? What was Madlanga saying to Brown Mkhwanazi? Was he communicating with any of these high-ranking police officials? So witness C says he took the phone, he took it to this place. Goodness knows where this place is, but somewhere in the heart of the police, where you download the contents of phones. So now we're going to learn what these conversations were about, right? No, wrong. Jiggy. Kat Madlanga's phone can't be downloaded. Witness C says he's never seen it before in his life. He didn't even know there was such a thing as a phone that can't be downloaded. But apparently they couldn't get the data out of the phone. And because the law says you can only keep these articles for a certain amount of time, they had to hand them back, and Kat Madlanga says he burned the phone after that. Talk about that's a real burner phone. A phone that was literally burned after you got it back. Nonetheless, the police that day learned interesting things from the conversation they had with Kat Madlanga, in that he drew these links to these senior figures. And of course, Witness C also spoke about a separate manhunt that was on for Katiso Molefe's nephew, Lucky Molefe, who worked in Transnet and apparently was the inside man on this unlawful tender over which the whistleblower was murdered. Actually, further in a case of mistaken identity. But for more context on that, go back to my earlier videos this week. So what did we learn from Witness C today? What we learned was Season 1, Episode 1, Scene 2. The parallel operation at Kat Madlanga's house that was going on while Season 1, Scene 1 was the operation at Katiso Molefe's house. And I must say that the conclusion I'm increasingly coming to is that so far, after weeks of testimony from multiple sides in multiple venues, General Mkhwanazi's claims, in large part, except for a few on the margin that have been contested, refuted, or even withdrawn, have remained intact. And I don't see that what Mkhwanazi has alleged has yet been fundamentally dislodged. Mkhwanazi alleges that there is a criminal syndicate, including the likes of Katiso Molefe and Kat Madlanga, who are influencing high levels of the police and politics in order to protect their wealth, but also secure protection from criminal prosecution or accountability. And in order to do that, they needed people on the inside in the police, in the criminal justice system, and in politics. And we have got a lot of evidence to support that claim so far. The denials we've got are denials of the kind which say there's no direct link, there's no smoking gun evidence. But there's not a complete refutation of those claims yet. There's not a refutation which says, I never spoke to that person, that WhatsApp you saw wasn't even me, it was someone else. There's a, yeah, it was my phone, but I wasn't replying. Or it's a, yeah, I know the guy, but I never met him, or there's no evidence that I met him. And so as this evidence takes shape, and as we hear from the other side in Parliament, we haven't heard from them in the Commission, I think it's lazy thinking to just say, oh, this is a factional battle at the moment. Because when you frame it like a factional battle, what you're saying is you're drawing an equivalence between the two sides. You're saying there's a tainted side on the one hand and an equally tainted side on the other hand, and they're just fighting because they don't like each other. I don't think that really gets to the heart of the nuanced picture that's emerging. Right now, what we have is a suggestion that there is one side, which may not be perfect, but is a side blowing the whistle, showing that there is another side, which is linked to a criminal syndicate. And those two things are not morally equivalent, right? So for now, and like I say, it's important to remain open-minded. It's important never just as someone who's analyzing politics. I know many of you come to this channel to make sense of things. It's important never to jump to conclusions early. You can even have a direction that you're going in your mind, but just always leave open the opportunity and the possibility that it could be something else, or that you don't know everything. But having said that, and all the necessary caveats of epistemological uncertainty entered, the fact of the matter is that Mkhwanazi's version has largely been corroborated so far, or at least it hasn't been completely refuted. Not even close. In fact, we're getting pieces of evidence, especially from the Madlanga Commission, WhatsApp evidence, video evidence, circumstantial evidence, documentary evidence, and testimonial evidence that actually adds weight and depth to a lot of the claims that Mkhwanazi has made. Now, sure, Mkhwanazi withdrew a claim that he made about Bheki Cele today, saying that there was money linking him to someone involved in the story. And that shows that not everything Mkhwanazi has said is true, because Mkhwanazi himself has withdrawn a claim. But to be honest, in the broader picture, those are peripheral claims. The central claims are the ones that really matter, and as far as I'm aware, those have not yet been refuted. So there's a long way to go. We are but at the beginning of this story, but I do think that that's where I'm landing right now. Does that mean I'm saying Madlanga Mkhwanazi is a perfect person? And because you get all these straw man arguments where people say, you're just an Mkhwanazi stan. No, I'm not. But I'm also not going to fall for this, everyone's tainted, so you can't draw a clear line between the two. I think that's lazy thinking too. Right now, I think that there are two sides, but the two sides aren't the same in my mind. And the version of one seems to be being largely corroborated, and the version of the other is scattered, incoherent, everyone's protecting themselves, and isn't dislodging the Mkhwanazi version. Can that change in the future? Sure. But right now, we're weeks into this, and the story is only getting deeper. And I must say that there are some brave people out there. And when you create this equivalence narrative, you detract from the bravery of witness A, witness B, witness C, who are staying in a safe house, putting their lives on the line, refusing bribes, and we're going to equate them to people who could potentially be aiding and abetting criminal syndicates? That narrative just doesn't make sense to me. Fam, it's been a tremendous week on the channel. This is... apparently I said Bushiri instead of Shibiri. Apologies. Thanks for the correction in the comments. Let's continue this conversation. I want to just say this is the first month that SMWX has crossed 10 million views. Fam, this is actually quite sensational. It's a little terrifying how big this platform is becoming. We take it very seriously, and we're really thankful because it's all down to the way you've been sharing it, talking to people, and making this channel grow by word of mouth. But yeah, it's a really amazing thing to see how big SMWX has become. We got more views on YouTube this month than some entire news channels that upload videos, like 5 videos an hour. And so thank you for giving this platform the prominence that you've given it. And we promise you to keep delivering it the same way we always do, helping you make sense of everything the best we can. And of course, leaving open a space for dialogue and debate. So let's continue to have that dialogue and debate in the comments down below. Look forward to hearing from you. Make sure you go back to all of our videos this week. We've given you live streams of the Commission and Parliament, but also lots of analysis. So if you want to do a binge watch of SMWX this weekend, there's plenty to keep you covered. And I would navigate to the playlists we've created for you, because we've got an analysis playlist. We've got all kinds of interviews playlists. Great interviews this week with Lukhona Mnguni and Prince Mashele. And we've got some cool interviews coming up as well for you this weekend. So someone said, thank you for leaving the SABC. You guys don't deserve the comment section, people. You don't deserve the comment section. Someone said this is the new citizen broadcaster, and I fully concur, but only because you've helped it get there and you've given us your support. Oh yeah, I actually also wanted to say, given that digital media is rising and growing so much, I just did want to say that I noticed Mighty Jamie suffered some serious intimidation this week, and I just wanted to offer him my public support and say that it's really unfortunate and just wrong for anyone who's making these kind of public comments to suffer any kind of overt intimidation. Look, what we do here requires a certain amount of bravery, and if something that's said is completely unfair or defamatory, then people certainly have avenues to take that on. Engaging people in a respectful way is the way to go. But when it borders potentially on a form of intimidation, then that creates a chilling effect throughout the media. So I did just want to say to Mighty Jamie, I think he must keep doing what he's doing and not bow to pressure. And anyone who has a problem with what is happening on these digital media platforms does have avenues available to them, and that should be used. But threatening is not the way to go about it. So, Mighty Jamie, keep going and stop any hoshkari behavior that might be occurring in the streets of South Africa. Cool, fam. Like, share, subscribe. Keep it locked on SMWX. And I'll see you on the next one. Aye.